Yo, how's it going, guys and girls? My name's Chris and welcome to my channel, CSM Investing. Now, some people class these two classes as being the same thing, when in reality, that's far from the truth, as there are some differences. Now, it can be difficult to distinguish between the both, but that's why in this video we're going to go over the differences, the similarities, and which one you should aspire to be. Obviously, as I've said, it can be difficult to distinguish between the two, and it's hard to say don't try and fall into this middle class section and try and be wealthy, as usually it's up to the parents as it's taught how people cherish money or spend money. Now, when things are passed down to generation, these things aren't easily unlearned and things are hard to learn. It's as simple as that. It's usually the parents' fault. And once we've gone over what the classes are, the similarities, the differences, and which one you should be, we'll always at the end of the video go over my final thoughts. But before we get into any of that, please do realise that I'm not a financial advisor, and anything that I do say, please take with a pinch of salt. And since you're all here, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Right, let's get straight into the video. I'm going to make this part as quick as possible and as brief as I can, as there's not much really to go through. So, the middle class is a description given to individuals and households who typically fall between the working class and the upper class within a socio-economical hierarchy. People who are defined as being middle class usually have professions within the fields of civil servants, professionals, and manager. See, I told you it'd be brief. And just like the previous part, we're going to make this point as quick as possible. So, we want to know what actually defines as being wealthy. But before we actually talk about that, we want to know what wealth actually is. So, wealth is the abundance of valuable financial assets or physical possessions which can be converted into a form that can be used for transactions. This includes the core meaning as held in the originating Old English word "well", which is from an Indo-European word stem. Since you know what wealth is, now it's time to talk about what being wealthy actually is, and we break this into the class upper. Now, the term upper class refers to a group of individuals who occupy the highest place and status in society. These people are considered the wealthiest, lying above the working and middle class in social hierarchy. Usually their jobs consist of executive management, medicine, finance and law. Now, there are some similarities between these two classes. There aren't many, but there are some, and the main ones are education and the fact that they both value hard work. So when I say education, I mean being specialised in certain fields, as if you're specialised in certain fields, it tends to open up more opportunities to making money and becoming a part of either the higher classes rather than working class, such as things like law. It's important to have that education as it just opens more doors. Obviously, it's not only education that these two classes value, as hard work is the core of everything. They know if you don't work hard, you'll get nowhere. They don't just sit on their asses and do nothing. Yes, sometimes people can't be bothered to do anything, but if you literally think, today is the day where I'm just going to relax, I'm going to do nothing, which is okay, you can have days like that, but if it's a day where you've planned to actually get things done and you wake up and you're like, I can't be bothered, and actually don't get nothing done, you're technically putting yourself in a worse spot than you was previously. Now, the difference between working class people, middle class people and wealthy people is the two classes that we're talking about here. They get like us sometimes. They get bored, they can't be bothered, that sort of mentality, but they push through it and get stuff done. And that's the difference. They don't moan about it. They know that if they don't get it done, they're going to be in the position that they are, static, and they're not moving forward. So what's the point in that? Since we spoke on similarities between the two classes, it's only right that we start talking about the differences. Now, there are a lot more of them than there are similarities. And the first notable one is money. Now, between these two classes, the middle class like to spend. Now, there's the key word for you, spend. That's all they tend to do. The way that these classes separate so differently is because if you're a middle class person, you're there and you can't get yourself out because you like to buy. You like to buy these new flashy products. You need the biggest house in the neighborhood. You need the fanciest car. It's all a waste of time, really. And that is why you're staying middle class and not becoming wealthy. I get it. You're trying to look cool. You're trying to keep up with the Joneses, as they might say. But because you're living paycheck to paycheck, you know better off than the working class. You've just got a bit more money and you look a bit flashier, but you're still struggling. And that's where wealthy people differ, because the way that they use their money is through being frugal. They don't have the biggest house. They tend to live in neighbourhoods where middle class people might live. Not the middle class that we're talking about in this video, because the middle class that we're talking about in this video will try and live in the poshest, most expensive neighbourhoods. But for the wealthy people, they tend to live below their means. So they live in a modest home. They have maybe a 2014 plate car instead of the new 2021 one. But yeah, as I'm trying to say, they're better at budgeting. They know where their money goes, what they're doing with it. They live below their means. They don't go out and spend their money on crap, basically. And that's where these two classes differ. Obviously, there are exceptions, as people like, I don't know, who should we say? Kylie Jenner. I can imagine she goes out and spends all her money, but she's going to carry on being rich because of the business that she's in, her family. But we're talking about people who have made it from the bottom and to the top and have become wealthy because of frugality, which some people don't really like, but you've got to do it if you want to become wealthy, especially if you're in like my position where you don't earn a whole boatload of money. You just got to save, invest, put your money aside for mortgages so that you can rent out properties. And then you need to understand that these big brands, people, it's keeping you poor. People don't care about you. You should care about you. And looking flashy it's just not the way. Okay, enough on that anyway. I hope from that little bit you can see where the relationships with money vary. Wealthy people tend to have a good relationship with money as they know how to make it grow and nurture for future and education, whereas the middle class, they value education, but their lifestyles, they're very different. I'm not going to dwell on this next point further. All I'm going to say is read the book The Millionaire Next Door, as it can explain this point a lot better than me, as you know, I'm thick really. But yeah, it's about how the parents influence either their children's spending or their frugality. As we spoke on education and knowledge earlier about their similarities, they also differ in this aspect as well, as in some circumstances being specialised in just one field is limiting your gains. I get that it sounds a bit stupid, as being a lawyer, you can make some crazy money and it's a very respectable field. But if you know a lot about many different things, you're going to widen your horizon. Whereas if you specialised in one field, say if you get made redundant, what are you going to do? Say if the field that you're working in comes down or whatever, what are you going to do? You're then going to have to go and specialise in another field. Whereas if you know several different things, you just give yourself a lot more options, and that's what the wealthy tend to do. Obviously, they specialise in one specific field, like they put all say whether it's being a doctor or a lawyer, but they also know about finance, they know about rental properties, they have side businesses, they know a lot about different things, which is where these two classes differ. The middle class tend to want stability. They want a job with a comfortable pension. Hear that? Hear that key word, comfortable. They tend to not take any risk. And that is where, again, these two classes differ, as the wealthy know that you need to take risks in order for you to further along. That's how it works. Without a little bit of risk in your life, you're not going to get anywhere. And the last one on the list today is the way that these two classes verify in their lifestyles. And since we've already gone over how wealthy people tend to buy assets and middle class tend to buy, liabilities, it's a bit obvious really. The middle class tend to have a more luxurious life, going out to country clubs, having the nicest cars, buying the biggest houses, whereas the wealthy people tend to have living below their means. Like we said earlier, they have the smaller houses, the less fancier cars, but they're the ones that are going to be able to retire earlier rather than the middle class, as their lifestyle is more sustainable. And who really wants to go out and be working for the rest of their lives? Obviously, the wealthy people will have side businesses, so they're still keeping active, but if they stopped working, they wouldn't need to work another day, they'd be okay. Whereas middle class, they'd probably be, depending on how much they earn, they'd maybe only be able to survive 3 years without working. It's all in the book, the Millionaire's Fast Lane. The Millionaire's Next Door, sorry. 2 different books. But yeah, I suggest reading it. It's a fantastic book. It's brilliant. It's a lot to read, but if you're interested in reading, that's what I suggest. If by now you haven't actually found out who's better off, then maybe this video wasn't for you. But here's a bit of information just to help you out a little bit. In America, for a 3-person family, in order for you to be middle class, your income is between $53,413 to $106,827. Whereas to be classed as wealthy, your income needs to be in the range of $373,894 and upwards. My final thoughts here are that on this channel, we should all be aspiring to be financially free. Now, this means being wealthy, not middle class, and definitely not being rich. As yes, being wealthy and rich are 2 completely different things, but more on that in another video. I'm Chris, and thanks for coming to my channel. Peace.